Well, good morning, everyone. I would like to thank you for taking time to join us for our presentation this morning, and the topic is empowering your HR department with strategies for visualizing your workforce data. And my name is Joe Collinger, and I am with OfficeWorks Software. And so we're going to go through this presentation in just a moment here. First of all, a little bit about me. I'm the founder of OfficeWorks Software, which is a company that's been dedicated to visualizing workforce data. So there's a number of views that I'm going to be showing you, and the thinking and the experience that has led to these views is something that I'm going to talk to you about. So our company, we do provide visualizations, and they're particularly for helping companies better manage their workforce. In particular, we've got org charting solutions, which are called Org Chart Professional and Org Chart Platinum. And these have been used for probably like the past 8 years all around the world in most of the Fortune 500 companies. So I'm not going to spend too much time telling you about the specifics of one of our applications, but I will be referring to them. But I think the thing I want to be emphasizing to you is real-life experience that we have had in taking the problems that our clients have and coming up with good visualizations that help them with their workforce planning, their workforce analysis, their talent management. We were founded, about 8 years ago, and we've got clients all over the world. Our tagline is to visualize, analyze, and manage your workforce. So let's go through this a little bit. I think that many of you have probably heard the old joke that there's a man who's searching diligently under a lamppost at night. And there's a passerby that comes by and watches this guy as he's walking in circles around this lamppost. And he says to him, "What are you looking for?" He says, "Well, I'm looking for my lost keys." He says, "Well, did you lose them under the lamppost?" And the guy responds, "No." He says, "Well, why are you looking under the lamppost?" And the guy responds, "Because there's no light anywhere else. This is the only place I can see." So it's probably kind of a silly example, but the idea is that if you want to find the keys, sometimes you're going to have to look in places where you're going to need new kinds of light to be able to see. And while we might be sitting in situations where we've got a lot of data, we want to find ways to pull it together so that we can see it easily, we can see it in context. It's something that allows us to make comparisons and really understand the situation better. So let's just go through some examples here about just why visualization is such a powerful tool. Now, I know visualization is not necessarily specific to HR, but that's the context that I'm going to be referring to for this session here. And I'll just mention one other thing. At the conclusion of our session, I'm probably going to talk for about 35 minutes. And any questions you have, there's a little chat box that should be available for questions. And you should be able to write questions to me, and I can refer to them a little bit later. Okay? So let's just continue on this for a second. Data visualization. So do you know the way to San Jose? That's probably a familiar song to some of you. So, and if we Google the way to San Jose, say from San Rafael, we can get a list of data. We can get a list of instructions. And Google here will give us a list of steps that we're supposed to follow. And if we follow them, we will get to San Jose. Now, while this list is helpful and while it's accurate, it's difficult for us to see as clearly as we could as if we had a map. So if you've got a map, here we can see San Rafael at the top, which is point A, and we can see San Jose at the bottom, which is point B, and we see the line drawn between them. So now you know the way to San Jose. And the great thing here is that you can see this trip in context. So if you decide you want to travel along the East Bay, and maybe stop in Fremont on your way and go to Fry's and pick up some discount electronics, you could do that. Or if you decide maybe you'd rather take another route and go along the coast, you could go to Ocean Beach, spend some time walking in the sand, and then still proceed on to San Jose. You'd have some ideas about things to do along the way. Whereas the list of data that we have on the left, while it's accurate, it doesn't help us properly see in context. And one of my favorite axioms is that nothing is meaningful without a context. So that's one of the things that we're working on here with visualization, is a way to see the situation in context. So let me just continue here for a moment. There's some visualization strategies. What we want to do is create insight for the present to strategically plan for the future. And here are the three major categories. For talent and workforce planning, we want to be able to manage continuous improvement of the workforce. For workforce engagement, we want people who are engaged in their jobs, satisfied with what they're doing, well matched, and we want to leverage them, those people who are really well engaged, because they tend to make the best leaders. And then strategic business agility. This really has to do with, as markets change, we need to continuously upgrade the staff to be able to step up to those new challenges. So I'm going to show you some visualizations that have helped our clients for being able to make sense out of their data so that they can make better decisions in these areas of talent, planning, workforce engagement, and strategic business agility. So let's take a look at an example here. Here is something like the old org chart. Now, our product specializes in organizational charting, our org chart platinum product, and I'll show you an example of how it works. But let's just say, for example, you've all got organization charts. Okay, and this is a starting point. For many of you, the org charts are generic. But there's light beyond the generic org chart, which simply shows how people are related to one another. Okay, so let's just take a look here. Beyond the basic org chart, you can have something that specifies not only the name and the title, but can also give information concerning salary data. So we can see the reporting relationships among the people, but also we can start peeking into other bits of information. Now, if you have tools that allow you to configure the boxes in a chart, then it's very easy for you to start changing these views. For example, we can also have aggregate information, so if you want to do summaries, but let's just take it a bit further. That same data, if we want to expose more of the elements, we can even have the headcount reporting, the span of control. And so now it's providing a richer picture for you to be able to see. Now, we could certainly produce a list of this information, but being able to see the relationships in context is something that becomes a very powerful visual. Now, our clients like to do things like this because they're trying to make decisions about who can take on additional span, where is it that we have managers that are overloaded, is there appropriate pay for the assignments that they're in. So we want to fold all that great data that the client has into a visual to better understand the workforce, so we can make better placement, compensation, assignment, and hiring decisions. Take it a bit further, instead of just having boxes on a chart, why don't we consider using this as a tool to help put faces with each one of these positions? I mean, this better helps us understand and remember. Again, the visuals are very powerful for our ability to recognize. The logic portion of your brain works much more slowly than the visual processing side of the brain. So it's one thing for you to understand these pictures. It's another thing for you to be able to communicate with others, so that if you're having meetings around these things, it's much easier for you to start associating people with each one of these positions and have a better understanding. And it draws upon your memory as well in terms of experiences that you've had with these individuals. So we can take a look at some other visuals that we've done for our clients. In this case, we've got clients who are looking to produce a heat map of the organization. they want to identify people beyond just the face and the name and the title. We want to be able to have a situation where we could describe something like, what are the performance levels, okay, for people who meet requirements, exceed requirements, or do not meet requirements. So that's possible that we can go ahead and put that information, we can go ahead and very easily put that information into a set of rules, and those set of rules can be applied to then give special color coding and special indicators. And if you look in this case on the right-hand side, we've got an individual who's identified as in a critical position, but also that individual is identified as being a flight risk. So now this becomes a very useful planning tool. Now we had, one of our clients is a very large Department of Defense company, and the situation that they had was that 4 months out of every year their HR group was spending time working on these heat maps for their talent management meetings. So they would do talent management, they would do performance management, they would do succession planning. Now, in the process of preparing for it, it was incredibly labor intensive as they would code each one of these charts. So one of the things that we did in working with them is automating the process. So we were able to take the heuristics that they had and put them into a set of rules, and then take those rules and associate colors with them and markers. And so the result was being able to automate this heat map process. So what was 4 months of work eventually became 1 week of work. And so what that enabled them to do was to redeploy people to do a lot of other things that were required and that had been on the back burner because they've been putting so much time into the preparation for these meetings. So we come from a perspective that people are not fungible, that they're unique, and that you want to play them to their strengths, and you don't want to spend time really trying to beef up their weaknesses. Otherwise, you just get people with strong weaknesses. But the idea then is that the more we understand about people and the more we can put those into these kinds of visuals, then it makes it easier for us to make decisions about doing a great job of placing them. So anyway, you can see here that we've moved beyond the spreadsheet. We've moved into a great visual. Now, let's take a look at some other examples here. So I think many of you are familiar with the 9-box method. The 9-box is a grid with which you plot employees based on their performance ranking and their potential for advancement. It's a little like the magic quadrant that analysts use to illustrate different rankings for comparison. So if you've got somebody who's very high potential for advancement and very high performance, the box would be colored in the upper right-hand side. If it's somebody who is both medium on their performance and their potential for advancement, you may color something like toward the middle here. And then if we've got somebody who's low on both their performance rating and their potential for advancement, then you could have a box like this. So anyway, this 9-box is a method that can be used to identify people's potential for advancement. And this particular chart that we're looking at, we've taken the org chart and we've incorporated the 9-box into the chart. So if we take this data and then we feed it into the organization chart program, it will draw the 9-box for each individual. Now, what you're looking at here is, this is our org chart for Visio application. So this uses Microsoft Visio, and it takes the HR data and it fashions it both into org charts, and it creates the performance rankings. And then you can see a legend that's at the upper left-hand side here, that people who are paid below market and people who are at par with market. So in addition, we can take a look and see which people are perhaps under market and of high potential, high performance, because those individuals could be flight risk. So this was a situation that one of our clients, who was a clothing manufacturer, that they wanted to be able to figure out how to come up with a better visual for this for their planning purposes. So the idea here, again, is we are coming up with visuals for each one of these people for this HR data that make it much easier to understand what the comparisons are and what the trade-offs are between people in the organization. Well, let's take a look at another situation for skills mapping. So there's a very large government agency that keeps airplanes up in the air. So I'll just kind of leave it to your imagination as to who that might be. They have about 8,000 people, and the task that they had was they wanted to figure out how could they identify individuals who had the optimal skill sets for advancement. And in this case, we've got an example here where they were looking for people who had communication, budget, public speaking, and writing skills. And we've got a little indicator for each one. So what our application does, what OrgChart Platinum will do, is take the data for this organization, and then based on the fact they had the skill information in the data, it was able to create a mapping showing not only the chart, but then showing who was a potential replacement for the manager based on the skills that that person had. And what they're looking for throughout the organization are where do people need to come up in their skills, and do they have individuals, or at least an individual, who is fully proficient in the full skill set that they were looking for. So in this case, this organization, this government organization, used this in their semi-annual talent management planning and succession planning. So this is the view that we help them develop, and we can see an individual here that has all 4 skills that they were looking for at that time. Now, eventually, people are going to be leaving your organization, and you're going to have to protect the company over time. So eventually, I'm going to show you some examples here about what we've done for our clients with succession planning using these visualizations. But before that, okay, so the other thing we're going to look at is in skills mapping. Let's take a look at some other things, such as a client that we had who was a drug manufacturer, a pharmaceutical company, and they have over 10,000 people. So their situation was they wanted to take the different teams for different initiatives that they had, and they wanted to be able to configure those teams so that they provided the best mix of talent with the right skill sets, the right balance of management, and the right pricing, so they can make sure that they were operating their projects at the most cost-effective means possible. So what I'm about to show you is that they did an inventory of talent. Okay, so we've got skills in a particular program or project, and this was perfect when they were in situations where they had to compete or recompete for contracts within the company to be able to do a project. They also were able to identify assignment risk, so we could know which risk is associated with the people that you have in the different positions. You could see the trade-offs where there was opportunity to move costs around within a program, where we could leverage strength, opportunities to upgrade the staff relative to performance and to really build some great bench strength, and then to reduce costs and increase value. So they're constantly looking for ways that they could optimize the labor costs. So let's just take a look at this, for example. Here is a visualization that we help them with. So on the horizontal, we have different levels of management that were involved within a particular program. And the vertical are showing the major subject areas or business areas where these personnel were assigned. So we have largely what is a technical program here. There's engineering and IT support, analysis and targeting, and then technical program management. And these particular worksheets that they would use, these plans, these visuals, would be good for maybe up to 50, 60, 70 people. And so they would take a person at a particular level in a particular subject area, and they would start placing these people, assigning them. And by the time that they were done, they could have an entire view of the balance of the organization. So what's great here is they can see, do we have adequate representation of engineering and IT support? Do we have the necessary senior level type management involvement? For technical program management, are we top heavy, or do we have the right blend of oversight and people who are going to be doing administration? For analysis and targeting, do we have adequate people who are going to be involved in sort of architectural oversight? So this whole kind of a view was something that they were doing by hand. And they had maybe 60, 70, 80 of these particular programs going on at any point in time. And it was taking them about 8 to 10 hours per worksheet to be able to do this. Not only that, but as when data would change, when the information about the organization would change, as new people came in and as other people left, they had to completely redraw these and figure out where the changes would be made. So what our task became then was to work with them to automate this entire process, to take their workforce data, their team information, and to be able to fashion it into a model that they could use. So the first thing we did is we found out what were the necessary criteria by which they were going to be evaluating and placing people. And so we found things regarding their employment status, whether they were full-time, part-time. We found that there was requirements around what was their performance level that we could expect from them based on prior achievement. How were they in comparison to others in terms of their cost for assignment? And then how about their level of talent? So these were the different criteria, and rules were developed around each one of them. And so the result was coming up with a talent map that could read their data and automatically assign people to the appropriate subject area and the appropriate level. So this whole automation was wonderful because as we did this, it could read their data, produce this visual, and the other great benefit was as any of the data would change, this view could be refreshed automatically. So what was an 8 to 10 hour job per page eventually went down to about 25 to 30 minutes. So there were significant changes, but one of the biggest things that happened out of this was the accuracy and the confidence that whatever view they were looking at, they knew reflected the latest and greatest information that they had of their data. So these were all great things for being able to make the appropriate assignments based on potential, performance, skill, and succession. And this was a close-up here just showing you the individuals, because you could rate up to 8 different criteria per person and have it visible in one of these windows. Now, succession planning is another thing. You've got people who eventually, as time goes on, they're going to advance. You want to find pathways for them to do that. People are going to retire. You want to find ways to make sure that you're not going to have gaps within your organization. You've got the information. So now how can you take it and use it in a way that's going to allow you to continuously upgrade the organization? So here's a large utility that is in the southeast portion of the United States. Company size was about 3,500. And in this case, each one of these boxes that we're looking at represent probably the upper portion of the organization at this point. And they would have succession planning meetings that would take place a couple times a year. And these were the visuals that they used because they were going in with a lot of hand-developed kinds of visuals. But instead we said, we can help you with that. We'll take the data, and for each person here, let's just see if we can give you a little more of a view. We can take each person, and in this case, we've got somebody named Hector. Hector is the incumbent for the position. And then we see Hector's title, and below Hector, there's the names of 3 people. Those 3 people are the potential replacements. Now, they are color-coded based upon their readiness to replace Hector. Someone who's in red is a short-term replacement. Somebody in black is long. Somebody in blue is somebody who isn't even rated yet. And you can see we also have immediate replacements and somebody who we'd have to bring in from the outside. So all of this is done using heuristics, developing rules to read that workforce data and to produce this visual. Then they could look and study each one of these people and say, do we have potential replacements? Now, if you'll also notice that there's a little red star and a little white star at the top of this box. The red star says this person is over 45 years old. The white star says an immediate replacement is needed. So this is giving a very clear picture. You have the data, but now with this visual, it makes it very easy to get a quick picture so that you can understand how it is you're going to improve the talent, ensure the viability of your organization, and keep things running. In the lower right here, you see a couple boxes that are totally red. And what that's showing is these are people who are potentially going to leave, and we do not have any replacements identified for them. Again, this was taking thousands of records of data, and it was what we did is we helped them to develop it, to shape it, and eventually to put it in a view that could be automated in this fashion. Next, we run into not only the succession planning issues, but hiring issues. So when we're selecting people, we need to focus on strengths, not weaknesses. We need managers who can develop people versus simply just stacking them up and using them for extended periods of time. Because we've got to be able to develop the personnel, and you want to put people with managers who are going to do that. The other thing is that there's an extensive amount of inefficiency in most organizations because you've got so many people who really aren't engaged with the jobs that they're doing. A study of probably about 3 million people that was done not too long ago indicated that about 29–30% of the people in their jobs were really actively engaged and helping for the success of the company. There's people that are actively disengaged also. They tend to be destructive or in a mode of what you might call malicious compliance. And then you've got people who are not terribly engaged either way. But what this amounts to is about 70% of the people in many corporations are really not the ones that you want to lean on. Now, coming from a company where Dilbert was born, I very well understand the issues of larger organizations and how they're run. But in any case, let's take the data we have and let's get some great insight, because a bad hire is very expensive. A bad hire can cost 10 times what the annual salary of that person would be. I'm going to introduce you first of all to what is the Magic Quadrant. The Magic Quadrant is something that you've probably seen in Gartner reports and other studies that is a very powerful visual. And in this case, I'm going to take it and show you how it's used in the hiring process. The nice thing we're going to do here is show how we can set up some criteria for people who have a profile that we're interested in. And then we're going to, as we do the interviews of a number of people, we're going to plot them based on how well they did in the interview, what we know about their, what we can verify about their performance level, what we can surmise about their potential for promotability or being able to fill the position. So our client, again, this was another client. This was a food company, and they wanted to provide an easier way for them to make comparisons among all the people that they were picking for a new position. So they went and interviewed probably about 20 people, and then they plotted them based on two ideas here. One was their potential, and one was a validation of what performance level they were at. And so you've got different hiring managers that are doing these assessments, and everybody's taking their mark at where this person would fall on this quadrant. And then they would specify the ideal candidate. Now, there's a number of dimensions that can be shown in this magic quadrant. And so what they wanted to do was say, look, the ideal person is going to be high on both performance and potential. The size of the circle indicates the depth of experience. And the fact that it's green indicates the culture fit was really important. In this case, this was a project for Agile development. So based on that, they went and took all those criteria and applied them to the different individuals. And now we get a much richer idea of the comparison. So whereas before we saw only 2 dimensions on that individual, now we're able to open it up to like about 5 dimensions per person. So the size of the circle means something. The color means something else, the number of years the person's been in a job. The green ones are probably ideals, but the ones that are falling in the upper right quadrant would be the ones that are the most interesting to us. Curiously, both Jory and Sally have a lot of experience, but they're not coming up as high as Pierre is, for example. And Pierre has got a lot of years in the job. The ones that seem to be the best culture fit are not in the same quadrant that we're interested in. So again, this is what we did that helped them come up with a richer visual that was able to make a much better set of comparisons instead of just looking at a list, and instead of just going by how many interviews work, which is you tend to remember the last person that you spoke to more vividly than the others. So this has to do with seeing the right candidate, and this was a tremendous help to our client. There's another one in candidate selection that we could show, and these are different little profiles that can be, we can take the interview data, and then that can be posted. Each one has 5 dimensions in this case, and it was based on education, their time in the field, recommendations that they came with, any certifications, and then how well they interviewed. So, and you could come up with a composite score. In this case, the ideal candidate would be an 8.25. In this case, the certifications were not the most important thing. And so now this is another visual that gives you the ability just to do a quick comparison. And you know, we have clients that have really appreciated this kind of a view as well. So this all has to do with getting the right people into the right position. And we want people who are really engaged. So these are things that are really helpful to make sure that you're picking the right kind of person. So I'm going to show you another one here. This is one of my favorites. We've got a client who's a software company, and they're running a number of projects. And this was a rather interesting situation. They had several buildings, and they needed to do space planning for their people. So in this case, we were able to import their floor plan into our application, and then subdivide it according to the spaces that were in the floor plan. And then taking the HR data, that same HR data that we've been making org charts with and comparing for skills and succession planning, we could take that same data. And this visualization shows us how the people are distributed throughout the floor plan. Now, your company has a campus. Our client was really checkerboarded. The project teams were scattered throughout multiple buildings, and it was really hampering communication. People were spending inordinate amounts of time walking back and forth between buildings. And I don't know how many of you have ever heard about the IBM study that was done years ago where if people are sitting more than 60 feet apart from one another, they might as well be in different towns. And maybe some of that is made up for now by the fact that the digital communication is really improved. But even so, just the verbal communication alone is probably about 15% of what really passes for good communication between people. So what this company really valued, because they wanted to foster innovation, is they wanted people to be co-located according to project and according to department. So the example that we have here is we're showing the colors according to department. Now, the wild thing that they were able to do here is just by changing the room assignments within their data, they were able to reassign people just by refreshing this view. So all of that work that would typically be done by having to draw and to plan and to erase and move things around, they could do simply by making changes to their database, refreshing this, and then all of a sudden you would see the colors change and the people would be assigned to different rooms based upon that. Projects come and go. They wanted a way to automate this so that their space planning would be more agile. So that's what we call agile space planning. So this was about optimizing the placement of employees to stimulate communication and innovation. So what I want to wrap up here with you is that visualization is a very powerful tool. Okay? With it, you can gain new insight. You could look at lists of data, and there's plenty of it, but the great idea about coming up with a good visualization is that there's new things that you can see. You can get a better understanding, and because of it, you can make smarter decisions, and that's what you want to do. You want to be able to see the trade-offs. You want to be able to see the comparisons. You want to be able to see the points along the way that you can leverage and take advantage of that might not have been so obvious had you simply been looking at tabular data. Because of this, we can drive a lower cost and improve performance. Because if we've got information and if we understand the information, then we are in a better position to make decisions and to control the outcome. So this is a very, very quick overview of visualization. I could show you also just the org chart Platinum tool, if I could, just for a moment, and then I'll be opening it up for some questions. So the organization charting tool, which is Org Chart Platinum, any one of these pictures here or one of these nodes that you're looking at can have all kinds of information, and they don't even all have to have the same information. So, for example, a box here could have a person's picture, or it could have contact information, or it could have things like their name and their title. It could have information about where they are in the organization in terms of an organizational breakdown number. It could have their head count, their span of control. It'll cover the average span, the median span. And any of these views here are very easy to change simply by just clicking on whatever view would be interesting to you for the informational purposes. And as you can see in the upper right-hand corner here, all of the summary data concerning the total head count, the number of open positions, total salaries, and so forth, this is taking all of that wonderful data and it's producing a visualization that makes it very, very easy for you to navigate. And so we can go into different branches of the organization, like here, for example. We can see where the people are, and we can see their relationships to one another. So, and all of this can be put out into an interactive PDF, or it can be posted to the web. So that is the org chart presentation at this point. And for contacting us, here's the information. You can find us at officeworksoftware.com or by the name of our product, which is orgchartpro.com. And I'll leave this up for you for a moment for contact information. And then while we're doing that, I'm going to take a look and see what questions there are here for just a moment, if you'll give me just a second. Okay. So one of the questions asked is, what are the platforms that are available? OrgChart Pro Platinum is a product that is a standalone application. It's a desktop application that reads data from any source. It could be from PeopleSoft, it could be SAP, Oracle, ADP, Oracle HR. It can take that data and it can fashion it into org charts and these visuals that we were talking about. The other application that we have is OrgChart for Visio. That application will take data and it'll put it into a Visio format. The highest degree of automation that we have is with the OrgChart Platinum product. And OrgChart Platinum will not only take the data and produce the visuals, but you can even automate the entire process so that on a regular basis, as new data becomes available, then the application will refresh the charts and it will produce the outputs and distribute them. So those are the two applications. The OrgChart for Visio application not only does the organization charts, it will do a lot of the maps and the magic quadrants that I was showing you just earlier. So other question is, do you have automated means for sharing this information? There is an application that will be available shortly. It's called Broadcaster. And what that does is it provides organization charts on demand. It allows people within your organization to sign up for an organization chart for their organization or whatever it is that they're allowed to see. And they'll see whatever data elements that you deem appropriate for that person's role. And again, that will be available in a few months. So stay in touch with us on that if you would. So that's it for questions. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us. And I'm going to make this recording available for those who would like a copy. But I wish you a good day. And again, keep in touch with us. Visualization is a very powerful tool. Take all that great data you have, make useful information out of it, and the applications, the tools we have will help you to employ it for building a better organization. Thank you very much.